Kyoto, Japan, October 8, 1594. You're standing in a crowd of thousands, and the air smells like burning wood and something else, something that makes your stomach turn even as you press closer to see. In the center of the execution grounds sits an iron cauldron so massive it could swallow a man whole, and right now, steam rises from its surface like the breath of some ancient demon. You can hear it, that low bubbling simmer that crawls under your skin and stays there. The oil inside is boiling, and in moments a father and his 7-year-old son will be lowered into it, alive. This is the story of Ishikawa Gomen, a man who became either Japan's greatest thief or its most beloved folk hero, depending on who you ask. But before we watch him die, we need to understand how he lived, because his life was a war against power itself, and his death would become a legend that still haunts Japan today. The year is 1558, and Japan is tearing itself apart. The Sengoku period, the age of warring states, has turned the entire country into a battlefield where warlords fight for territory and power, and where honor is worth more than life itself. Into this chaos, a boy is born to a samurai family in Iga province. His name is Sanada Kuranoshin, and he should have lived a life of duty and honor, serving his lord and dying with a sword in his hand. But when he's 15 years old, assassins come in the night. They murder his parents in their own home, their blood soaking into the wooden floors while the boy hides and watches. His father's crime was nothing more than choosing the wrong side in a political war that shifted like sand in a storm. When the killers leave, the boy stands over his parents' bodies, gripping his father's sword, and something inside him breaks. Sanada Kuranoshin dies that night, and someone else is born, someone harder, angrier, and far more dangerous. He becomes a student of Momochi Sandu, one of the most feared ninja masters in all of Japan. In the mountain strongholds where shadows are weapons and silence is armor, the boy learns the arts of infiltration and assassination. He becomes a ghost, a whisper in the dark. But even in this world of discipline and death, his heart betrays him. He falls in love with one of his master's concubines, a woman whose name history has forgotten but whose beauty must have been worth dying for. When Momochi discovers the affair, there can be only one punishment: exile or death. The boy chooses exile, but not before stealing something precious from his master, a legendary sword that seems to sing with its own inner light. It's a theft that brands him as a nukinin, a runaway ninja, a man without honor or home. And so he disappears into the mists of history and emerges with a new name, Ishikawa Gomen. Before we continue with what happens next, if you're drawn to these dark corners of history, these true stories of defiance and tragedy that most people never hear about, then please hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. They remind us that history isn't just dates and battles. It's real people who suffered, who loved, who fought against impossible odds. And your support helps keep these forgotten voices alive. Now, let's return to Gomen, because his transformation is just beginning. And what he is about to become will make the powerful tremble and the poor whisper his name like a prayer. The Kansai region in the late 16th century is a place of brutal inequality. Merchants grow fat on trade while peasants starve. Samurai lords hoard treasures like dragons while farmers work themselves to death for a handful of rice. The Buddhist temples accumulate riches that would make emperors weep, and nobody, absolutely nobody, questions this system. Nobody except Ishikawa Gomen. He becomes a shadow that haunts the wealthy, striking at night when the moon is dark and the guards are lazy. Picture this: a merchant in Osaka sleeps peacefully in his mansion, surrounded by silk and gold, dreaming of profit margins. He doesn't hear the footsteps on his roof. He doesn't see the shadow that flows through his window like liquid darkness. He only wakes when he feels cold steel against his throat and looks up into eyes that hold all the fury of the dispossessed. By dawn, the merchant's strongboxes are empty, and in the villages outside the city, mysterious gifts appear. A bag of rice on a widow's doorstep, silver coins pressed into a crippled beggar's hands, medicine for a dying child, paid for with gold that bears the merchant's personal seal. This is how legends are born, not in grand halls of power, but in quiet moments of kindness that follow acts of defiance. Gomen and his band of followers become ghosts in the night, redistributing wealth from those who have everything to those who have nothing. The common people begin to whisper his name with something close to reverence. Here, finally, is someone who understands their suffering. Someone willing to risk everything to balance a world that has tilted too far toward the powerful. Children grow up hearing stories of the noble thief who robs from the rich to give to the poor, and in their imaginations Gomen becomes something more than human. He becomes a force of nature, a champion of justice. But legends, as Goemon will soon discover, are dangerous things. They attract attention from those who prefer their injustices to remain undisturbed. And the most powerful man in Japan is about to take notice. While Goemon builds his legend in the shadows, another man rises to prominence in the full light of day. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, born to a peasant family, has clawed his way from the lowest rungs of society to become the most powerful man in Japan. Where Goemon uses stealth and cunning, Hideyoshi employs armies and diplomacy. Where Goemon seeks to redistribute wealth, Hideyoshi seeks to accumulate it and control it. The two men are mirror images of each other, both born to nothing, both risen through sheer force of will, but their paths diverge in ways that will prove fatal. By the 1590s, Hideyoshi has united Japan under his rule, ending decades of civil war. But peace, he understands, requires more than military victory. It requires the elimination of all sources of disorder, all challenges to authority. And in the shadows of his new order, Ishikawa Goemon represents everything he seeks to destroy: lawlessness, rebellion, the romantic notion that individual conscience can triumph over state power. The confrontation comes through personal tragedy. Goemon's wife Otaki is taken by Hideyoshi's agents. Some say she was executed for her husband's crimes. Others claim she died trying to protect their son from capture. The exact details don't matter. What matters is the rage it kindles in Goemon's heart. The man who had been content to steal from the wealthy and help the poor now thirsts for something deeper: revenge. On a September night in 1594, Goemon infiltrates Fushimi Castle, moving through its defenses like the trained ninja he once was. He reaches Hideyoshi's private chambers, where the ruler of Japan sleeps surrounded by layers of security that would make infiltration seem impossible to anyone else. Goemon draws his blade, the stolen sword that has been his companion for so many years. The steel catches the moonlight and seems to glow with its own fire. One quick thrust, and the tyrant will be dead. But as he raises the weapon, his foot catches the edge of a small table. A bronze bell tumbles to the floor with a sound like thunder in the silence. Guards pour into the room in seconds. Hideyoshi bolts upright, his eyes wide but already calculating. In moments, Goemon finds himself surrounded, his blade still raised, his assassination attempt turned to failure. "The great Ishikawa Goemon," Hideyoshi says, with remarkable calm for a man who just woke to find death at his bedside, finally shows his face. "I had wondered when you would come for me." The trial is swift and predetermined. Standing before Hideyoshi in the great hall, hands bound, Goemon holds his head high. When asked how he answers the charges of theft, banditry, and attempted assassination, his response is magnificent in its defiance. He looks directly into Hideyoshi's eyes and speaks not as a criminal begging for mercy, but as a man who has lived by his own code and is prepared to die by it. "I am guilty of all you have named," he says, his voice strong and clear. "I have stolen from the rich to give to the poor. I have defied the laws of those who would grind the weak beneath their heels. And yes, I tried to kill you because you are a tyrant who has forgotten that power exists to serve the people, not to dominate them. If these are crimes, then I am proud to be a criminal." The court erupts in shocked murmurs. No one speaks to Hideyoshi like this, but Goemon isn't finished. "If defying injustice is treason, then I am happy to be a traitor. Do what you will with me, but know that others will follow in my footsteps. The poor will always need champions, and tyrants will always breed rebellion." The fury in Hideyoshi's eyes is terrible to behold. The sentence, when it comes, is so shocking that even hardened courtiers gasp: death by boiling. A punishment so rare and terrible, it's reserved for only the most unforgivable crimes. But Hideyoshi isn't finished. "Your son will share your fate," he announces. "He will die as you die, slowly and in agony, so that all who witness it will understand the price of defying the rightful order." For the first time, Goemon's composure cracks. His son, his innocent boy who has done nothing but bear his father's name, will die for his crimes. "The boy is blameless," Goemon says, and his voice breaks. "Kill me as you will, but spare the child." But Hideyoshi is implacable. "The child carries your blood, your name, your legacy of defiance. Japan will be better without both of you." The night before the execution, Goemon sits in his cell with his son pressed against his side. The boy, only 7 years old, whispers the question every parent dreads: "Papa, are we going to die tomorrow?" Goemon looks down at his child and chooses truth over comfort. "Yes," he says. "We are going to die tomorrow. Will it hurt?" The boy asks. "Yes," Goemon says again, fighting back tears. "It will hurt. Will you be with me?" "Yes," Goemon promises, pulling his son closer. "I will be with you. I will hold you, and I will not let go, no matter what happens." The boy nods, seemingly satisfied. In his child's mind, perhaps death isn't so frightening if his father is there to face it with him. That night, Goemon composes his death poem, a final statement of his philosophy. "Though you may boil a thief's body, you cannot boil away his spirit. Thieves will always exist as long as there are rich and poor." Dawn comes too quickly. The execution ground is already crowded with spectators drawn by the terrible fascination of witnessing something unprecedented. The great iron cauldron sits in the center of the cleared space, its black surface gleaming, steam rising from the boiling oil inside. Goemon and his son are brought forward in chains. The boy stays close to his father's side, his small hand clutching at his father's robes. Hideyoshi himself is present, seated on a raised platform, his face showing no emotion as he watches the man who tried to kill him face his final moments. The executioner explains the procedure with clinical detachment. The condemned will be lowered into the oil feet first, allowing them to experience the full agony of their death. There will be no mercy, no quick end to their suffering. Goemon listens without flinching, but his grip on his son's hand tightens. "Remember what I told you," he whispers. "I will not let go." When the guards move to separate them, to take the boy to his own chain, Goemon does something that will be remembered for centuries. He lifts his son high above his head, holding him as far from the boiling oil as his strength will allow. His muscles strain, his shoulders burn with the effort, but he holds the boy aloft. The crowd gasps. This is not how executions are supposed to proceed. If you must have our deaths, Goemon shouts, his voice carrying across the silent crowd, then take mine first. Let the boy die quickly, without suffering. The executioner looks to Hideyoshi, who nods for the execution to proceed. The chain lowers, and Goemon's feet touch the surface of the oil. The effect is immediate and horrific. His body arches in agony, but still he holds his son high above his head. Lower they go, inch by terrible inch. The oil reaches his knees, then his waist, then his chest. Each moment is an eternity of suffering, but still his arms remain steady. Still he holds his son above the killing heat. The crowd watches in stunned silence. Some weep openly, others turn away, unable to bear the sight. And then, as the oil reaches his shoulders and his strength finally begins to fail, Goemon does one final act of mercy. With the last of his fading power, he pushes his son down into the oil quickly, ending the child's terror in seconds rather than the slow agony Hideyoshi had planned. The boy's scream is brief, cut short by the boiling liquid, and then Goemon himself sinks beneath the surface, his death poem proven true in the most terrible way imaginable. His body could be boiled, but his spirit, his defiance, his love for his son in that final moment, these things could never be destroyed. The crowd disperses in silence, haunted by what they've witnessed, and Ishikawa Goemon, the thief who became a legend, passes into history not just as a criminal, but as a father who, even in the face of unimaginable horror, refused to let go. In Japan today, Goemon is remembered not as a villain but as a folk hero, a symbol of resistance against tyranny and inequality. His name lives on in stories, plays, and films. The bathtub style known as Goemon Buro is named after him, a dark reminder of his fate, and his death poem still resonates across the centuries, a testament to the truth he understood so well. As long as there is injustice, there will be those who rise to challenge it, no matter the cost. What do you think drives someone to sacrifice everything, even their own child's peaceful death, to make a stand against tyranny? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because these questions don't belong to history alone. They belong to all of us, in every age, in every place where power and justice collide.